Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the life your parents lived is now impossible for you. Single income could once buy a home, raise a family, cover health care, put kids through college, still leave enough money for vacations and savings. But today, millions of Americans are working harder than ever while feeling like they're falling further behind. This isn't an illusion. This is the story of how the U.S. middle class, once the strongest in the world, is disappearing faster than ever before. And the reasons behind it are not what most people think. For decades, the American middle class was the engine of global prosperity. It represented stability, upward mobility, and the promise that if you worked hard, you could build a good life. But over the last 40 years, something has quietly shifted. The cost of living has skyrocketed, not in small ways, but in ways that reshape entire lives. Housing, healthcare, childcare, insurance, food, and education have all risen far faster than wages. And the math is now impossible for millions of families to ignore. Let's start with the biggest pillar of middle-class stability: housing. In the 1980s, the average home cost around 3 times the average income. Today, in many states, it's 6 to 10 times the average income. A middle-class paycheck can no longer buy a middle-class home. Even renters are trapped, with rent increases outpacing income growth every single year. For many Americans, the idea of owning a home, the core symbol of middle-class success, feels like a fantasy. But housing is only the first crack in the foundation. Healthcare, something every human being needs, has become a financial nightmare. The U.S. spends more per person on healthcare than any country in the world, yet families still face massive premiums, deductibles, surprise bills, and medical debt. More than 40% of Americans say they avoid medical care because they can't afford it. And the cost of healthcare alone can push a stable middle-class family into poverty with just one emergency. Then comes childcare, which has become more expensive than in-state college tuition. Two working parents often discover that a huge portion of their income disappears the moment they have a child. The middle class used to rely on one income. Now it requires two, yet even two incomes are no longer enough to stay afloat. And speaking of college costs, the price of higher education has exploded by more than 1,000% in the last few decades. A generation ago, a summer job could cover tuition. Today, students graduate with tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Young Americans enter adulthood already behind, with loan payments that delay buying homes, starting families, and building wealth. The path to the middle class now begins with debt. But here's the part no one sees. While costs exploded, wages stayed almost completely flat. If wages had kept up with productivity, the average American would be earning around $100,000 today. Instead, millions of workers are stuck at $40,000 to $60,000, while every essential cost of life has grown out of reach. People feel like they're drowning because in a way they are. Now let's talk about something deeper. The structure of the U.S. economy has changed. Manufacturing jobs that once provided stable middle-class incomes have been automated or moved overseas. Gig work and contract jobs replaced full-time employment. Companies shifted toward maximizing shareholder value instead of long-term worker stability. Retirement pensions disappeared, replaced by 401ks that many Americans can't even afford to contribute to. Lifetime job security? Gone. Predictable wages? Gone. The middle-class safety net? Gone. The result: a historic wealth shift. Over the last 40 years, the wealth of the top 1% skyrocketed, while the middle class shrank from 61% of Americans to barely 50%. Millions have slipped downward into the working poor, while many others hover just one accident, one illness, one layoff, or one bill away from financial disaster. The middle class is no longer defined by income. It's defined by constant financial anxiety. Meanwhile, credit became the new life raft. When wages stopped rising, people didn't stop needing to live. So they turned to credit cards, loans, and financing to fill the gap. Today, the average American carries multiple debts: mortgage debt, car debt, credit card debt, student debt, personal loans, and the interest on that debt drains wealth faster than many families can build it. America has become a place where middle-class families survive through borrowing, not earning. It's not just economics, it's psychology. The American middle class was built on optimism. the belief that the future would be better than the past. But today, 65% of Americans say the next generation will be worse off. That optimism has been replaced by stress, frustration, and fear. Fear of losing your job, fear of getting sick, fear of becoming homeless, fear of retirement, fear of never getting ahead. When fear becomes normal, the middle class is no longer stable. It's fragile. But here's the part that truly reveals how severe the crisis is. The shrinking middle class affects everything. It weakens economic growth. It reduces consumer spending. It increases political polarization. It reshapes family planning. It transforms housing markets. It even affects mental health and community stability. A country cannot thrive if its middle class is collapsing. And right now, America is facing exactly that. Yet despite all this, there is still hope. New generations are redefining what it means to be financially stable. Remote work is reshaping job opportunities. Digital skills are creating new paths to higher income. Alternative education, online business models, and financial literacy trends are helping people escape traditional traps. And millions of Americans are waking up to the reality that the old financial playbook doesn't work anymore, and they are redemanding something better. Because the truth is this: the American middle class isn't disappearing because people got lazy or irresponsible. It's disappearing because the system changed, but the expectations didn't. Families are playing an old game with new rules. And the first step to rebuilding the middle class is understanding how it was lost. So as the cost of living rises, wages stagnate, and debt climbs, one question remains: can the American middle class be saved, or are we witnessing the end of an era? The answer depends on how America chooses to respond, not tomorrow, not next decade, but now.